Good evening, everybody. I hope everyone is having a fantastic weekend. My name is Zach Warren, and my artist manager to discuss tonight is the one and only Miss Sharon Osbourne. So here's the short list of the topics of discussion for tonight. And a little side note, I just wanted to touch on that since I'm an Atlanta boy and I support my Braves, go Bravos. I was a big fan of Chipper Jones when I was a kid, and back in the mid '90s, I used to love hearing Chipper Jones' walkout song, which was "Crazy Train" by Ozzy Osbourne. And so when I played baseball as a kid, I was like, "That's gonna be my walkout song if I'm ever in the major leagues," which obviously didn't happen. So this is Miss Sharon Osbourne. She was born in 1952 in Brixton, which was a small district in a London borough of Lambeth. And her father was actually the infamous manager whose name was Don Arden. Now, who is Don Arden, you might ask? Well, Don Arden was the manager for Black Sabbath, which was her soon to be husband, Ozzy Osbourne's band. He also managed Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard, Air Supply, Small Faces, and that's just naming a few of them. But Arden was crazy. I mean, this dude was wacko. He had a mob-like mentality when it came to managing. I mean, this dude, he didn't know how to manage any of his money either. He made a lot of money because he was managing some really big names in the industry. But apparently, according to Sharon Osbourne, he had no idea how to control his finances, which actually taught her a lot later in life. So since she was around someone like her father, who was a big-time music man or artist manager, there was no reason to believe that she wouldn't soon become one as well. So as far as other work besides being an artist manager, Sharon Osbourne has been all over television for the better of the last 2 decades. I mean, she started out with a show on MTV called The Osbournes, which I'm sure so many of you have heard of. It was a television show where they followed their everyday life, and it ran from about 2002 to 2005. She was also a judge on these talent reality TV shows like The X Factor in the UK, which was a British talent television show ran by Simon Cowell. She also was part of the judges panel for the America's Got Talent as well, with Howie Mandel and Howard Stern. And she also had a little cameo in one of my favorite comedies by Mike Myers, Austin Powers, and Goldmember. And then she also has a role in this new television show on CW called Supergirl. Other than that, she has also written two autobiographies, one being Extreme, my autobiography in 2006, and then she wrote another one called Unbreakable, my new autobiography, which revealed a lot about her life, which I'll go over soon. How Sharon Osbourne became a manager. So her father managed Ozzy Osbourne, as I mentioned before, in his former band called Black Sabbath. And in 1979, he was fired for a huge substance abuse episode because he couldn't control himself during that time. And he also fought repeatedly with Arden over a lot of things. So as after he was fired, Sharon began to manage Ozzy, and then shortly after that, she married him in 1982, which apparently, according to some interviews, that really angered her father. So some of the artists that Miss Sharon Osbourne has worked with besides Ozzy Osbourne was Motorhead, Coal Chamber, and she even managed her daughter Kelly for a moment, even though that didn't last very long. And then the strange 4-month episode that she had with Smashing Pumpkins, which I found hilarious because she apparently couldn't work with their frontman Billy Corgan, and she claimed that he quote unquote blew chunks in an article because she said working with him physically made her sick. So that didn't last very long, but still that's part of her repertoire. So as far as her managing style goes, I feel like she's a very hard-working person with all the personal struggles for most of her career. She's went above and beyond and to help Ozzy Osbourne's career. She started Ozfest, which that really helped out Ozzy because the reason that she started the Ozfest to begin with was because she was rejected by Lollapalooza back in 1996 when she reached out to them for Ozzy to perform. And apparently, she was told that Ozzy wasn't cool anymore for their specific target audience, which I found absolutely egregious, especially even in 1996. I mean, come on, it's Ozzy freaking Osbourne. I mean, he's a legend. So she launched Ozfest, and it took off with success for the most part. And I mean, they had bands, they had some huge bands come through throughout the years, like Slipknot, Pantera, Marilyn Manson, Godsmack, Rob Zombie, Incubus, Linkin Park, Chevelle. All of these guys are fantastic rock acts. And then in 2007, she decided to make the festival free. And the reason was because she felt like the young audience wasn't able to afford the tickets to come and see these shows. So she wanted them to have an experience, which I thought was an awesome move on her part, because that shows you that she really cared about her fans who were coming to the show. Because without the fans, there is no show. So the 25 date festival uh, went on, and it was a pretty ballsy move for Osborne to begin with, because it's considered a big no-no in the industry due to contractual issues like the big radius clause, which most of you might know. The radius clause is where there's a set parameter of area where an artist can't go perform at another venue within the city if they're already coming there to play for another festival. It's just a thing to help out promoters and bands in general. So some of the good decisions and the bad decisions for Sharon Osbourne, I believe for the good decisions, which are on the left here, she saved Ozzy's career pretty much. I mean, he was fired from her father back in 1979, and then she went on to manage him for 20 years. Plus, she kept Ozfest afloat, like what just I mentioned just before, with offering free admission for everyone in 2007 for 25 tour dates, which that's a lot of tour dates for free shows. And these artists weren't getting paid during that time too. They was only sponsorships were generating revenue for the whole thing. And she starting the Sharon Osbourne Management Company was also a good decision, because that boosted her career as well. I mean, she was managing some pretty big artists besides Ozzy, her husband. And I believe, to be honest, the Osbournes television show also helped her out tremendously, even though she got a lot of negative feedback towards it, especially from other folks in the music industry. Like, there was an incident in 2008 at Ozfest, and Iron Maiden was playing the last concert of the day, and he started going on about trash talking Ozzy, saying that he needed a teleprompter for his concerts, which I thought was pretty funny. But his audio started mysteriously going out, and fans were really pissed off about that, and they started throwing things on the stage because of what he said about Ozzy. Because you had some hardcore Ozzy Osbourne fans, because you're at a festival named after him, basically. And so she had to come out and apologize for everything, and said that she loved Iron Maiden, but she thought that the lead singer was a prick, which I thought was also hilarious. And yeah, so for as much negative feedback as it got from some of the people in the industry, saying they went commercial and all this, I thought that it helped boost their career, like all of them. I thought that it really helped out Sharon in a way, because it showed how likable of a person she was, and how appealing she was to have on camera. And it seemed like she was a natural when the cameras were on her, which, before her time on the Osbourne television show, and even years prior, she never felt like she was pretty or attractive. And she thought that she was overweight, and she struggled a lot in her early life with that. So I feel like that when she got on the Osbourne show, it kind of turned that all around, and you didn't see that side of her anymore. So as far as the bad decisions go, I didn't think there were too many of them, but I'll highlight just a few. And her personal life and choices, I think, slightly impacted her career in a way of making her unhappy with herself and even her marriage. And she got involved with Smashing Pumpkins. That was a big mistake, I think. Just because, I mean, Billy Corgan is a fantastic musician, but from what I've heard and read, and it's not just from her managing him for only 4 months and not being able to deal with him. She's not the only one that I've read where he's very hard to deal with. So I honestly think there's someone out there who can work with them one day, or work with Billy Corgan one day. But I don't think that was a good decision for her. And so the husband and wife duo for the business that she was running, I mean, it seemed to be all right, but there was so much turbulence in their family, and I think that at the end of the day, that had a lot to do with a lot of their problems too. Was the limelight, the constant limelight, and being on television all the time, and her husband being world famous for being Ozzy Osbourne, the shock rocker, and all that. So I think that the husband wife duo thing was 50-50 on their success. It helped in a way, and then it also hurt them in a way. But I would still put that in sort of the bad decision column. Although I wouldn't say that it was a total bad decision. So, it's 50-50 toss up for me on that one. So lessons learned from Sharon Osbourne. I mean, Sharon was a success, and I think that she is a great person deep down, and she is a really, really hard worker, and it shows through all of the stuff that she's been through and how she's continued to uphold the Osbourne brand, so to speak. But she claimed that she had no talent, and she felt like she was ugly, and she said for women in the music business back in the 70s, you had to be pretty or you had to have good looks in order to get by, which I find rather insulting to women, because there are a lot of women out there who are fantastic in the music industry, and they don't get a lot of publicity. It seems like it is kind of a man-driven industry for the most part, but I feel like it's sort of shifting in the other direction as time progresses and new people and new faces come into the industry. I really think that things are changing on that front. But as for Sharon Osbourne, she built her foundation through humble beginnings. From her abusive alcoholic father, who in my opinion was not that great of a artist manager, even though he was famous and he brought on a lot of big names with Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard and Black Sabbath, but he was just such an ass when it came to being a manager, and the way that he conducted himself was rightfully so when you hear people speak of him. And she learned how to not be like her father, to be honest. She was exactly the opposite of her dad. And then through an extremely turbulent life, she remained loyal to Ozzy. For 33 years they were married. And then she also built a brand with him and managed him for 20 years. And then their brand built Ozfest, which brought so many big name artists and in rock bands around the country to perform. And then they had the free concert, and that was a big thing, which was a lesson learned for a ballsy move from someone like Sharon Osbourne to do a free concert tour and not pay your artist and somehow come out making money because of your sponsorships and marketing. And then it leads into 2016, where she ended up stating that she wasn't really happy with herself and she wasn't happy with Ozzy, which led to her split. But eventually they got back together again, because I think that they just keep battling, and that shows that she's the same way with her business and her career as a reality TV star and an artist manager, is because she's just relentless and how hard she works and how much she believes in herself and in her family, and then she'll stop at nothing to keep that together. And so that's why I really admire Sharon Osbourne as an artist manager, a person, anything you can think of. I think she's a great woman, regardless of what some people might say about her within the industry. I think that Sharon Osbourne is someone who people who are aspiring to be an artist manager should look up to. So that's my presentation on Sharon Osbourne, and thank you guys for listening.